Hello, welcome, and good morning, everyone. This is Michael Gibbs, and for those of you that know me, I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Architects, and we're an organization that's dedicated towards building high-performance cloud computing and networking careers. I'm here this morning to answer any questions you have about building your cloud computing career. If you desire to be a cloud architect or a cloud engineer or an enterprise architect, for example, or a network architect, really anything that we can do to build your career, and that's why we're here. The reason I love doing these things is when I started my technology career, I had no idea where to begin. So I focused on certification. I spent a fortune. I took in a 10-day, $11,000 CCNP boot camp and a $5,000 MCSC boot camp, compiled all these professional level certifications and still didn't get hired. So it took a little bit for me to know exactly what to do. And once I knew exactly the direction to go in, instantly my career took off. And I progressed faster in months than people did in years. And I've leveraged that knowledge for the last 2 decades to help people really, really, really excel in their careers. And it's really something that I absolutely love doing. So that's why we're actually doing these things. Now, this week, our organization is doing so many things to help you get cloud hired that I wanted to tell you all about it. This week, for example, we have a completely free AWS Advanced Networking Bootcamp. If you missed yesterday, you can go back and watch yesterday's. It's here. And we are going to go live from 12 to 3 for the remaining of the week doing AWS Advanced Networking. We may and will also have some bonus sections where we're going to get some hands-on and have some fun doing that. This Friday, I have the recruiters at IT Excel coming in. And IT Excel has a good number of jobs right now, some of them that they're looking to fill right now. And the recruiters are going to come and tell you anything that employers are actually desiring. We're going to have a discussion on how to master the interview. Me and the CEO of one of the best tech recruiting firms in New York City, they've got 20 recruiters and they've placed so many of my people. And I'm super, super, super excited to talk about these things and bring all these people on the channel to help all of you get your career. Welcome, Alex Richardson. Welcome, Donald. We're so happy to see you here today. So I just want to let you know some of those things that are coming on. So please, make sure you join us for the AWS Advanced Networking course this week. The cloud is nothing more than a network and a data center that's been virtualized. And the network is the key to all of it. If you don't have a network, nothing works. Literally, no servers will work. Nothing will work. No services will be there. So the network is the foundation to all of it. And because the network matters so much, that's why we're here. So we're here to answer any of your questions. So if any of you guys have any questions, please feel free to bring them forth so we can answer them. GZ from DC, so good to see you. And Cloud Hired, absolutely. Sharice, welcome. Good morning. So if anybody has any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will wait to hear from you for some questions, but I love coming here to ask questions, to answer your questions. I know what it was like when you started your career. While we're waiting for some people to ask some questions, one of the things, okay, well, so Alex has asked the question, where is Cindy? So for those of you that don't know, I've got this cat, Cindy, and this cat, Cindy's kind of a fun one. She's literally speaking 90% of the time, she's sitting on my lap and I'm on conference calls and I've got this little kitten in my lap, and she's the greatest thing ever. Right now, Cindy is outside climbing trees and chasing birds. When she woke me up this morning, she literally ran outside, climbed the tree. So she's actually there. And she is great with engineering training, Alex Richardson. Cindy does a great job of unplugging our servers that our students use as lab servers. She unplugs network cables. She unplugs power cables. She uses her paw to push off the power buttons on the server. She's a real helper around here. So in addition to being a great mascot, she's very, very, very useful and helpful. But Cindy is really brightens up the place, and I got to tell you, writing is much more fun when she's there. So if any of you guys have some tech questions, I actually think that's terrific. While we're actually waiting for people to ask some questions, let's talk about one of the really critical things when you guys want to move into these architecture roles. Typically speaking, when we have some of these types of roles, what we're trying to show and we're trying to do is we're trying to build the client. So for example, when we're dealing with hybrid roles, like if it's an engineering role, it's pretty easy to train someone to be an engineer. You just teach them the tech and they're good at it and then they get hired. But for example, when we're dealing with these architecture roles, we're not really dealing with straight tech roles, and we're not really dealing with straight business roles. They're kind of like these hybrid roles. In the old days, they called them liaison roles, and in a lot of ways, it's still a liaison, but it's not exactly, because it's like a leader and a liaison together. So when we're dealing with these kind of roles, what we're really dealing with is, how do we develop the business acumen? How do we develop the communication skills? How do we develop the leadership skills? These are all those, and the presentation skills and the sales skills. These are those things that really, really matter. So these are the kind of things that matter when we're talking about building architecture. So architecture or building careers, those sort of things. So when it comes down to your career, don't just focus on the one dimension, focus on the other dimension. And that's why we're here. We want to really help you out, truly get it. So it looks like some questions are coming in, and so we'll go there. The first question is a quick one. It's from GZ. GZ says, are there any lizards or iguanas in my area of Florida to chase? GZ, unfortunately, the answer to that is there are many lizards and iguanas in my and for Cindy to chase, and she brings me 1 to 3 every single day. She goes out, she brings them in the house until she plays with them for a period of time, and then she doesn't play with them anymore, and it drives my wife nuts. So GZ, yes, we have lots and lots and lots of lizards that she can chase around. Chris, if you want to ask, go to the next question. The next question is coming in, and it's coming from Sarah Smith. Hi, if someone is following your advice to learn the cloud first, but working on certs to get in the door, which would you recommend, getting the AWS Associate or the Advanced Networking and then getting the Professional? Sarah Smith, let me be really helpful and guide you. Certifications won't get anybody hired and won't get anybody's foot in the door. None. Now, certifications will help you get an interview. So, Sarah Smith, let's talk about what will get you hired and get your foot in the door, because it has nothing to do with certifications. Certifications teach you the name of the service and how to configure that service. So, Sarah, before I actually answer your question, I actually need to know which job you actually desire, because you didn't mention the career. So I'm happy to tell you what's necessary to do, but I don't know if you're looking at cloud engineering. I don't know if you're looking at cloud architecture. I don't know if you're looking at DevOps. I don't know if you're interested in maintenance, which is SysOps. So I really want to be able to guide you as to what kind of certification to get based upon what kind of career you actually do. So if you want to, okay, you said you want to be a cloud network architect, and by foot in the door, you mean get an interview. Okay, so Sarah Smith, assuming you, and getting an interview without having the requisite knowledge really doesn't do any good. So I'm going to go tell you what you need to do to actually get hired. And I can tell you what to get an interview. An interview is easy. If you want to get an interview as a cloud network architect, get a Cisco certified network professional and an AWS certified solution architect professional. That'll get you an interview, and I could do that all day. Now, getting an interview and getting hired are two different things. Now, I'm going to make this clear, Sarah. I've interviewed 5,000 people. I've hired 10 of them. So most companies get 3,000 to 5,000 applications for a single job, and a company will interview 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 150, 200 people just to find a cloud architect because they can't find anybody. And when it comes to a cloud network architect, they might be interviewing hundreds of people. So instead of, and working on those situations, Sarah Smith, if we're dealing with the potential from somebody getting an interview to get hired might be 0.05 or 0.03%, we're not working on trying to get you an interview. We actually want to get you hired. So to get an interview, get a Cisco certified network professional and get a AWS certified solution architect professional. That'll help you get an interview. Now, if you actually want to get hired, Sarah, this is something totally different. To get hired, you're going to need to have some depth of knowledge, some communication skills, some business acumen, lots of emotional intelligence, lots of executive presence, and lots and lots and lots of communication skills. And the certification piece will teach none of this. So when you do the AWS Advanced Networking, and that's the AWS Advanced Networking is a very nice intro to networking. It's kind of like an intro to junior level networking. It does teach some basic things, and it is a great, great, great thing. But Sarah Smith, when we're talking about a cloud network architect, we're talking about a guy like me that's a CCIE with 20 years of experience or 25 years experience that also knows the cloud. So to get a cloud network architecture background, here's what you're going to need to know. You're going to need to know a lot about BGP just to survive the interview. And you're also going to need to know a lot about IGPs like OSPF. You're going to need to know a tremendous amount about IBGP, EBGP, BGP traffic engineering. You're going to have to know a tremendous amount about NAT, one-to-one NAT, static NAT, dynamic NAT, one-to-many NAT, all the use cases for NAT and not just the simple one. Now, the next thing that I would say is that you're going to need to learn after that from the networking side, because remember, you want to do this, you're going to have to understand the MPLS technologies, for example, and the RSVP signaling and software-defined networking. You're going to have a tremendous knowledge on switching. You're realistically going to need to have lots of knowledge on VLANs, 802.1q tagging, Q and Q tagging, Ethernet over MPLS, as well as all the other technologies. I got to tell you, Sarah Smith, that's at least 25,000 pages of reading that I'm talking about for that cloud network architect. Now, if we trained you, that would be great. We have lots of cloud network architects that we train, but just that is just the networking component of a cloud network architect. Getting the interview is fine. Anybody can get an interview. I could have an interview for you tomorrow, Sarah Smith, with 0 certifications. I could literally call one of my tech recruiters and say, hey, let's get Sarah Smith a cloud network architect interview. And I could have you on 10 interviews by the end of the day. Now, getting you 10 interviews by the end of the day is different than getting you hired. And having the connections and knowing which recruiters to get you an interview is another story too. So again, that's that. Now, Sarah Smith, even after that, you still need to know the cloud stuff. The cloud stuff means servers, it means containers, it means firewalls, and not just the cloud native firewalls, but the industrial firewalls. It means load balancers, network load balancers. It means application load balancers. And yes, there's other flavors of load balancers that are variations, like a gateway load balancer, but you need to understand the main kinds, the network load balancers and the application load balancers. Beyond that, you need to have a monster background in DNS, lots of knowledge in Active Directory and authentication and things like that, lots of knowledge in cloud. And then, Sarah, getting that interview, I will tell you this, that if you just study technical things, nobody gets hired as a cloud architect or a cloud network architect that only studies technical. They must also focus on business communication skills, executive presence, executive communication, emotional intelligence, presentation styles, understanding how to be CXO relevant, knowing what to say to the CEO versus the CTO versus the CIO versus the CFO, the ability to do ROI modeling, the ability to negotiate. Without those skills, Sarah Smith, someone is a cloud engineer. And they can be a cloud network engineer, but not an architect, because the architect is at least business. And I got to tell you, Sarah Smith, I've got lots of students in every country in the world, and they're all amazing. The ones that focus on tech don't get hired until they say, and don't get hired. And I got to tell you, when I take people and they're the really tech people and all they want to do is focus on the tech, nothing happens. And when they tell me 2 months later, okay, Mike, I'm willing to listen to you, I'm going to go learn those soft skills and learn the emotional intelligence that you've been telling me about for the last 3 months, they get hired almost immediately. So Sarah Smith, we've got to define the problem. The problem is, what do hiring managers desire? Hiring managers desire people that are technically competent, not certified, technically competent. People desire people they can trust, people that know what they know and know what they don't know. Again, this is not certification. This is knowledge. Hiring managers want energetic, enthusiastic, emotionally intelligent people that bring out the best in others, people that are willing to go above and beyond, and people that are team players. This is what hiring managers want. Again, my goal or outcome of getting an interview isn't there. I know people that have been on hundreds of interviews in their life. Getting an interview is not the issue. Getting someone hired is the issue. So I hope I answered your question there, Sarah Smith. I want you to get hired. I want you to have a great, great, great job. But our measure of success is someone getting hired. I could literally speaking get you 10 interviews before the end of the day. That would be no big deal. But if it doesn't get you hired, we're not serving our purpose to help you. And just getting in interviews, in fact, going on a bunch of interviews until you're ready can only be a scary experience. So we want you to be prepared when you go on that interview. Do a great job on that interview. We want you to win that interview because we want you to get cloud hired. That's the goal, get you cloud hired. So, Sarah, I hope I've answered your question there. Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. Peter Otto, you're a newbie. What is the best way to get an IT job? Once you get your cloud associate, what should you do next? Well, Peter Otto, I can help you get an IT job, but the key is what kind of an IT job you want. Every IT job you want, Peter, requires a different path. For example, there's software developer jobs that are in IT. There are DevOps jobs that are in IT. There are cloud DevOps jobs that are in IT. There are maintenance jobs that are in IT. There are help desk jobs that are in IT. There are cloud engineer jobs that are in IT, cloud architect jobs that are in IT, cloud infrastructure architect jobs, cloud security architect jobs. I'm just mentioning a few. There's IAM architect jobs. There's database people. So Peter, I don't really know what kind of job you want, and I'm not trying to be difficult, but if you tell me the exact job, I can give you the path. But if you don't tell me what you're interested in, the directions I give you could take you years and years and years out of the time, keeping you from getting to your goals. So please be a little bit specific. I really, really, really want to help you. But what I would tell you to do for a cloud architect is this. What I would tell you to do for a cloud engineer is this. And the skill sets of these two careers are so different that a cloud architect like me has no idea how to work as a cloud engineer. And a cloud engineer would have no idea how to work as a cloud architect. Now, I did engineering in my youth, so I know how to do the cloud engineering. But the point is most people that are architects know how to be architects, and most people that are engineers know how to be engineers. But most people don't really know exactly what the role is. So I need to know exactly what that role is to help you. But I'll tell you this, in case you've left and you're going to come back and watch it. I will say, when it comes to getting your first tech job, here's what we do and here's why we do it differently, because we've been helping people get their first tech job for 20 years. First thing we do is we identify the exact role. And we must know the exact role because each role requires a different skill set. And we keep carrying on our skill sets by constantly looking what hiring managers are looking for, speaking to recruiters constantly, and reaching out to our contacts that are actually doing these roles. So we know exactly what people want for these roles. So first thing is figure out what the goal is. When we know what the goal is, and that's the first part, the exact goal, then we can look at your starting point. So if here's the goal and here's your starting point, the first thing is, what is the necessary skills to be here? Then we look at what are your skills. And then we do a gap analysis so we can close the gap between what the employer needs and what you need. That's the first thing we need to do, and that is technical competency. We must do that. 2, we need to get you something that looks like relevant experience. So, for example, I train cloud architects and a lot of cloud computing professionals. I get students that have come to me, they're already certified and they can't get hired because certification won't get somebody hired. We'll get somebody hired, but certification alone is not enough. So somebody comes to us, they're an AWS certified solution architect professional. Nobody is going to hire them because they don't have any capability to actually do the architecture. Smart people, good people, hardworking, motivated. They work real hard to get these certifications, but they don't necessarily have the skill. So the first thing we do is we identify those things that are necessary. And then we create some experience portfolio. So how do we create the experience? For example, I taught an 8-year-old how to set up an EC2 instance and configure an S3 bucket in less than 5 minutes. And I got to tell you, no employer is going to pay $150 to $350 or $400,000 a year to someone to click 3 buttons on a management console and turn on an EC2 instance. Nobody's going to do that. But knowing what to design is essential. So the key is, for the architect, it's design skills. And you can't design what you don't understand or what you don't know. So when people look at cloud architects, they're looking for infrastructure experience. What is infrastructure? It's the network, it's the servers, it's the containers, it's the virtualization piece, it's the firewall piece, it's the NFS and the file sharing piece amongst Linux, Unix, it's the server message block amongst Windows, it's the Active Directory for IAM, and it's how the cloud works. So for example, we build a lab program for our students so they can say they have a job working for Go Cloud Architects. Okay, great, you told me DevOps. Peter, that's going to make everything much better. So then the key is actually getting the experience necessary. So our students get their experience. And I'm walking through ours, and I'm going to give you your answer. So we give them experience. Then, Peter, the next thing to do is build your brand. And we have to create a brand that's 100% centered about the exact thing that you do. So, for example, an architect like me would never study DevOps because it would make me look terrible as an architect. But DevOps people, for example, should study DevOps. So it's a matter of building the right brand, Peter. And now that I know you want to do DevOps, we're going to get you there. And DevOps is a great career, by the way, Peter. So I think it's fantastic. The point is just getting the right things for your career. So that's what we need to do next. Now, third, optimizing your LinkedIn profile to make sure that everything out there screams DevOps. So if you're a DevOps person, obviously you're going to need to be a software developer first. DevOps is not a career that you're just going to start with unless you have some software capabilities prior to doing DevOps. So then it's finding the skills, becoming competent. Then it's actually learning the right skills, and Peter will go back to you when we talk about developing the right DevOps skills. Then it's mastering the interview technique. And then it's learning how to negotiate a better salary. And then, Peter, the last component of this, when it comes to getting your first tech job, is the non-tech piece. Now, this is going to sound strange. Why the non-tech piece? And then Peter will get to you. The key is when you are new, you can never get to as competent as somebody that's done it for 30, 40, 50 years. You just can't, because it takes time. It takes 10,000 hours on a niche area to become an expert on something really small. DevOps isn't really small. So it's going to take more than 10,000 hours, for example, to become an expert in DevOps. Now, maybe 10,000 hours to be an expert in Git or Jenkins, but not 10,000 hours in DevOps. So then there's the level of building that level of extreme competency. And because we can't build extreme competency, we can get you to great competency, but not extreme on your first job. Peter, we've got to make up for it somewhere. So what do? How do we make up for it? We build the je ne sais quoi to make you more likable, make you feel more powerful. We focus on communication skills, executive presence, emotional intelligence. Because, Peter, when it comes to your interview, and then I'm going to get to the DevOps in a minute, when it comes to your interview, 50% of the hiring manager's interview of you is your technical abilities. And the other 50% is your teamwork, your communication skills, your attitude, your energy, and enthusiasm. So see, if we can get you to 40 out of 50 on your first tech job on competency, and 50 out of 50 on the likability, emotional intelligence, executive presence, then, Peter, you're getting hired and you're getting paid more. So, Peter, the secret is to become the most attractive you can be to the employer and develop the technical competence. Okay, so, Peter, you mentioned that you want to go into DevOps. Going to DevOps, first, you should be a software developer, Peter. If you're not a software developer, Peter, I really recommend you stay away from DevOps because you should be a great programmer first. If you're not a great programmer, you're going to have to learn to program prior to getting into DevOps, and I don't recommend that. So let's say first you are a programmer. Then you need to learn the DevOps tools. And there's a bunch of them, Jenkins, Spinnaker, Git. There's a fair number of them. You need to become an expert on those tools. Now, Peter Addo, I'll tell you who's a great person to learn DevOps from. It's Sandeep Das. Sandeep Das is wonderful. In fact, Peter, Sandeep Das and we're going to have it released hopefully within the next 6 weeks, are working on a how to get your first DevOps job program, which takes advantage of my 20 years of actually getting people their first tech jobs or getting them promoted in tech, which I've got lots of experience on. And Sandeep Das is fantastic DevOps. But Sandeep Das on his YouTube channel provides a lot of free training. Today, he had a nice little Python thing that he was showing. Loved it. I recommend it to my cloud engineers, and I recommend it to my DevOps students. So Sandeep Das is a great free resource to learn these things from. So really the key for you, Peter, is to do the following. First, make sure you're a software developer first. If you're not a software developer, I'd probably stay the heck away from DevOps and I would do something different. I think DevOps is amazing, but I don't go into things where I don't have any of the skills. So, software development first, then learn the DevOps tools, Jenkins, Spinnaker, off of the cloud first. Learn off the cloud first. In fact, I always want you to learn the off the cloud first. Then learn the same tools on the cloud. And by doing it this way, you'll be able to work anywhere. See, once you know how to do it the hard way off the cloud, you can do it on the cloud the easy way any day. But if you learn how to do it on your regular system, whether it's a Linux system, learn how to use these tools the right way, the hard way, off the cloud, then when you go to the cloud, everything else is silly easy. So you can show the hiring manager you've done this. Now, once you've done it regular, then you can do it on AWS, you can do it on Azure, you can do it on GCP, and GCP's got some really cool DevOps stuff as well. So that's the way you do it. You become great. First, you find out what the employer needs exactly for your skill. Then you figure where you're at. Then you plan your gap analysis, and then you fill in the gaps. So, Peter, for DevOps people, software first. Then we need to make sure you've got the competency in all the DevOps tools. I've mentioned a few, Jenkins, Spinnaker. 3, where can you get some more DevOps training? Sandeep Das. Most of his training's free. He's got a fantastic YouTube channel. He and I collaborate constantly, because he's really, really great. And then after that, focus on your interview skills. The better your interview, the more likable you'll be. Focus on working on your sales skills, your emotional intelligence. Guess what? When you do this, Peter, while typically speaking, these aren't the skills that people typically think of in the engineering role. They think more of in the architecture and the leadership roles, but they will make your career go up faster because you'll have the skills that managers are looking for. So by learning it now, it'll help your likability profile and help your be perceived as more capable and stronger by the hiring manager, which is exactly what you need to do to get hired on your first tech job. It'll get you paid more because it'll make you more likable, and it'll make your career rise faster. So those are our recommendations. But Sandeep Das is an incredible resource. Strongly recommend him for learning DevOps. He's on my YouTube channel a lot. I've got some how to become a DevOps engineer videos that we did with him on my YouTube channel. Please look for it. It'll be in one of the uploads or one of the live streams. Sandeep Das is a great person. So Chris, if you want to bring in the next question, if you guys have questions, please ask some. I know it's a little quiet today. I think, yesterday we were online for about 8 hours. We did our AWS advanced networking, and then we did some bonus architecture work at night. It was a big fun day. Burnt Any, what path should I study to work from home, please? In cloud. Eddie Burnt, you can do a lot of job working from home. The question is which one you want to do. So determines which one you should study. So Eddie Burnt, if you tell me which job, then I can tell you what to study. If you don't tell me the job, I won't know what to study. For example, as a cloud architect, we're going to build a cloud architect portfolio. If you want to be a cloud engineer, we're going to build a cloud engineer portfolio. If you wanted to be, and there's like hundreds of jobs that you can do in the cloud. So just telling me you want to work from home in the cloud doesn't really give me the ability to know what you actually want to do. So if you tell me what you desire to do, I can again tell you the path. But thousands and thousands of cloud jobs, and actually every cloud job that exists are the same jobs. Okay, so you're not sure, you're new to IT. So Eddie Burnt, that's the key, is we need to figure out what job you actually want, because anybody can work from home in tech. I've worked from home in tech for the last 20 years. Working from home is not new to tech people like me. Cisco, I worked from home for the last 2 decades. Prior to that, at Riverstone Networks, I worked from home. In fact, I hadn't actually gone to an office more than once a week since 2000, 2001. So, okay, so you're graduating in January with an associate's degree. So, Eddie, the key is first, we have to identify what job you desire. That's the first piece. If we look at the cloud architect and the cloud engineer roles, which are my 2 favorite, let's talk about the difference. Going into the cloud engineering roles, okay, you're 47, that's even better. Okay, 47 makes you much easier to transition into, say, the cloud architect roles. So, but let's talk about the, Eddie, what is your previous job title? Let's see where you came from, because that'll make a big difference. So, for example, if you were in a customer service field or a sales field or a consulting field, that would lead itself more to architecture. If you were in more of a building field, that would lead itself more to engineering. So let me know your actual background, and then that can help us. Now, while I'm waiting for your background, I want to make this very... Yes.
Mike, while we're waiting on his response, I want to take the chance to remind everybody, especially Eddie, possibly about tomorrow's webinar about getting your first job in the cloud.
Okay, at Chris, excellent idea. So, actually, for everyone that's here, especially you, Eddie, and the few others, tomorrow at 9 a.m., we are having a completely free, and it'll be a 2-hour webinar on how to get your first tech job. And we'll tell you what you do when you're transitioning careers. For example, Eddie, I used to practice medicine before I moved into tech. I'm a nurse practitioner. So the point is we're experts at helping people transition careers, and we've done it forever. So in your case, you've done something completely different. And that's totally fine that you've done something that's completely different. The key is, what did you actually do and how can we relate it? Now, driving heavy equipment on its own doesn't look very related to what we actually do here. So what we really need to do is tease out what are those things with regards to heavy equipment that could actually be useful in your current field. I don't know a lot about heavy equipment, but I'm going to make some assumptions and you can tell me if I'm correct. I'm assuming that when you're dealing with heavy equipment, there's risks involved. Meaning if you do something and you make a mistake, someone can get injured. So if that's the case and my assumptions are correct, when you're dealing with heavy equipment, you must have a relationship between attention to detail and being successful. So that I would assume is related. You can tell me I don't know heavy equipment at all, but to me it looks like if you're going to be having some big machine that's got a lot of steel around it, you could hurt it. So the attention to detail that you've learned from your past career would be helpful. Now, I would also assume that in something like this, you got to be correct on what you do. So let's think what else, because there's always a correlation to IT. It's the key is finding those correlations, because if you can't find those correlations, the manager can't be. Now, in these, so you're hospitalized for 3 months on the job. Okay, so there you go. The criticality of attention to detail is there. Now, the next thing is there prioritization with heavy machinery? I don't know. For example, do you have to determine what gets done first, what gets done second, and what gets done third? If there's contention, if there's prioritization in your job, that's something that the cloud architect has to do. Which factor do you do first? First, second, third, fourth, or fifth? That level of prioritization is again something that the architect would do. Was there any human contact in this job? For example, did you have to deliver things to people? Were there questions with regards to being on time and on budget? Were there things that were related to that? If you had to get something from one place to another place on a certain period of time, was there a planning or an orchestration of this, this, and this? Again, that is architecture work, and that needs to be shown to the hiring manager that the same. So the attention to detail, the planning, the architecture. Now, when you're dealing with architecture work, they need to know what you know and what you don't know is the difference between doing things right and doing things wrong. I saw someone today say, hey, it's okay to use an IP addressing calculator. But what they didn't even understand was if you don't even know how to do the IP addressing, everything else is going to be broken. So the planning component is, again, an architecture piece. Now, the communication of getting things on time. It's not just radio communication, which I see you put in there. There is the radio communication. And guess what? Communicating over the radio is very different because you've got to ensure accuracy. So when you communicate over the radio, you have a message and someone acknowledges that message. Again, that's highly useful. You typically repeat back the message, and you use typically things over the radio to be more accurate. So things like Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, Hotel, India, etc., phonetic alphabet. So again, there's more precision there, again, which is architecture. So the people, the planning, the communication, all these things are architecture skills, and you've got to convince those things to the hiring manager. That's the secret. The coordination of people, that is what you need to do, and that's part of it. For example, there is no such thing as no relationship. And I used to practice medicine. Medicine is how I learned how to become a cloud architect. It all came from medicine. Here's what I did in medicine. Patient comes into the office. They've got a complaint. Got a headache, Mike. You know what I did that? After they say I have a headache, I examine them. Then I make a diagnosis and I write a prescription. So, you have military background, and that changes everything. That'll make it easy for you. So there's that. Then, so in medicine, come in, I ask some questions, I examine their systems, make a diagnosis and a plan. You know what I do as a cloud architect? I go meet with the CEO and I say, tell me about your business. What are your business challenges? Then I say, can I assess your current technology systems? And they say, yes. I make a diagnosis and make a plan. Doctor, interview a patient. Architect, interview a client. Doctor, examine the patient's systems. Architect, examine the client's systems. Doctor, make a diagnosis. Architect, make a hypothesis. Doctor, write a prescription. Architect, write a architecture. It's the same job. So everything is related. Nothing is different. And military things even more relate to these things. And military things make it a lot easier because military shows the ability to take direction, do things on time, and a level of mental toughness. So the key is, and half of what we do is going through people's resumes, going through people's experiences and preparing them to show that to the hiring manager. There is no such thing as no experience. Life is cumulative and it all adds up. Come from networking, great. Networking, great. It's probably the best, most clear. Come from the cloud, great. Come from nursing, great. I don't care. Figure out exactly what you want. And I strongly recommend you come to our class tomorrow, the How to Get Your First Tech Job webinar. We used to do it all the time. Now we do them periodically because we've just gotten so busy. But, you will learn exactly what you need to do, what to do to your resume, what to learn, what to study, how to do it, and you will get hired. So time in the Army, lots of experience, you can get there. Focus on being the best. Focused on building the perception. Focus on building that new brand. Focus on translating your current experience to real experience that the current employers see, and you'll have no problem getting a job. Do it every single day. So, hope to see you in the thing tomorrow. We've got, again, free AWS Advanced Networking training this week. And while the AWS Advanced Networking course in general is super, super basic, ours, we're going into more detail because I'm a Cisco certified internet expert with 25 years experience, almost a decade spent working at Cisco. And I know you guys need more than what's in the AWS Basic Advanced Networking course. So we give you a lot more when we do our training. So hope we've given you that and lots of free training. And the network is the foundation to everything, Eddie. So please join us today. Now, Chris, if you want, and also, Eddie, we have a Cloud Architect Career Development Program. And that's a 16-week program for people that have a tech background. And it's about a 24 to 32-week program for people that don't have a tech background. And in these programs, we do live architecture training twice per week. And in addition to the live architecture training we do twice per week, our students do homework assignments in between classes. They send in the homework assignments. We give them feedback. And then our students have a lab program that gives them experience so they can put down on their resume that they're with Go Cloud Architects. And our students do everything from setting up server virtualization to building their own clouds. So when our students get done and we call one of our 300 recruiters and we say, hey, this student, Eddie, is ready to graduate. They're capable, they're competent, let's get them interviewed, let's get them hired. I can do that for my students in my program. So that's kind of the background. That's what we do. And we've got a program for it. So if you wanted to work with us, we'd love to work with you. If you've got questions, you can always ask us. But realistically speaking, come attend our free class tomorrow, and I think you'll learn all of what you desire to learn. And if you've got any questions or desire to call our office, we just put our office phone number inside there. So these are our recommendations about how to get there. I'd love to answer any more questions anytime. So, Sebastian, to become a cloud architect, what skills other than AWS Architect Cert do you need? Should you take business classes? So, Sebastian, I will tell you exactly what you need. Sebastian, in the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, we're going to use that as the baseline minimum certification. Pretty much what they teach is the name of the service and how to configure it. So, Sebastian, none of that's what we do as a cloud architect. In fact, we don't do any configuration as a cloud architect. We don't do any coding as a cloud architect. We don't go looking at logs as a cloud architect. All we do is design. So, Sebastian, here's what you need to do. Pass that AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional because you kind of need that to help you get an interview. Then you've got, Sebastian, you could take our course, which covers all of it. But if you're not our course, here's what you need to do. First, you need to learn system design, starting with the network, which means you need to learn a lot about routing. You're going to need to know a lot about BGP. You're going to also need to know about interior gateway protocols because they're going to be in the hybrid environments that you're going to be dealing with. You're going to have to understand about WAN connectivity, and you need to know all the WAN connection options. And they're not just going to be Ethernet. It could be Ethernet over MPLS. Could be software-defined networking. There's a lot of other options that we could be using for private line type connections. There's also various VPN and IPsec technologies, and you need to know them all in depth. So after you know those routing protocols, and mind you, knowledge of these routing protocols themselves is an easy 3,000 pages, just understanding the algorithms. And you got to learn those algorithms because those algorithms are everything. After that, you need to learn NAT. And I don't mean NAT gateways and NAT instances. That's not NAT. I mean, it is NAT, but I mean NAT. And how do you NAT in an enterprise? And how do you do one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, static NATs, the dynamic NATs? There's all kinds of NATs. And NAT for when your company buys another company, you got to get good at that. You've got to understand switching in the nth degree. You need to understand VLANs and VLAN tagging and VLAN trunking just from the networking side of things. You really should understand QoS policies because that can do a lot. You really should understand network security. You need to understand a lot about firewalls and IDS, IPS systems and next generation firewalls. You've got to have a big level of knowledge that's actually sitting in here with regards to VPN concentrators. Then you need to learn system design of your servers. So you probably need to read about 1,000 pages of VMware documentation to truly understand server virtualization, not just the VMware ESXi, but KVM and QEMU. Get used to the main hypervisors that are out there. Do the same thing for containers, Docker, and Kubernetes. Do the same thing for file sharing protocols. Make sure you know a lot about NFS and a lot about the server message block protocol. Then I need you to read about 1,000 pages on storage, block storage, object storage, and file storage, because you're going to need to know all of these things and how these systems work. And you can get that from Dell EMC. Do the same thing for load balancers. For about 1,000 pages from F5, you're going to get all the knowledge you need to about load balancers. That's going to give you what you need to. And then you need to do the same thing for DNS. Now, I need you to do the same thing for Active Directory, learn IAM. Now, that's going to give you the technical component. Now, we're talking about 50,000 pages of reading, 25 to 50,000 pages of reading. We've knocked that down into our course because we've done this. We've been architects forever. Now, after that, Sebastian, the next thing that you need to do is you need to get really good at presentations. So you need to take a presentation course or take our program. There's a great presentation course in California called Talk So People Listen by Speakeasy. It's a good intro course. It's a couple $1,000s for the few days, but it's a good intro course. You need to do the same thing for emotional intelligence, because that's the biggest predictor of success. Again, we teach that in our program, but if you're not with us, you can do that. So get some emotional training from Goldman, emotional intelligence training. And when you're done that, some executive presence training needs to be there. You can hire an executive coach, someone that can look at your presentations and tell you when to pause, what to do with your vocal tone, what to do with your gestures. You got to have that for these roles. And doing these things, by the way, Sebastian, really focusing on the soft skills, the emotional intelligence, the presentation skills, this can easily make a 6-figure difference in your salary over someone that's focused just on the tech. So not only are these things going to help you, but they're going to help you earn a lot more, millions more in the life of your career by focusing on these non-technical skills. You should learn some ROI modeling. You need to learn what the CEO versus the CFO versus the CIO versus the CTO. Some of that will be covered in an MBA program, some of it, but a lot of it will not. A lot of that, even at MBAs like me, what we had to do was go to special training and CXO relevancy training. So I spent a fortune on this, Sebastian, and that's why I created this program. So those are the things that you need to do. So Sebastian, you've got a couple options. One is you could take our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, which compresses it all, and we've got all of this. And our Cloud Architect Career Development Program is 250 hours for people that have worked in tech and 500 hours for people that have not, because that's what it really takes us to do this. So of those 500 hours, only 20 hours are dedicated towards the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional in our training program. The other 480 are dedicated towards turning someone into an amazing cloud architect that's employable, paid more, and will get promoted constantly. So those are the skills that are necessary to become a cloud architect. Also, I strongly recommend you not be an AWS architect, but a cloud architect. And here is the reason why. An AWS architect only knows how to work on AWS. But what happens when you work on Azure a week later, or GCP the week later? Now, Sebastian, it used to be that AWS was the main player. Did you know that right now, only 3% of businesses are only using a single cloud? Now, a year ago, it was 29% of businesses that used a single cloud. But now it's only 3% because a single cloud is a single point of failure. And if you just study AWS, then you're going to have to study Azure, and then you're going to have to study Google, and then you're going to have to study Oracle, and then you're going to have to study OpenStack. Now, Sebastian, the way we do it is we teach the cloud. You don't learn to drive a Mercedes and then take another set of driving lessons to learn a Toyota, and then take another set of driving lessons. You learn what is the steering wheel. You learn what is the brake. You learn what is the accelerator. You learn where is the gear shift, and it works on all cars. So the way we teach is we teach what is a virtual machine. By teaching what is a virtual machine and having you build the virtual machine and talk about the virtual machine, if it's an EC2 instance, an Azure virtual machine, or something from Google Compute Engine, it's all the same, and you know that, or an Oracle virtual machine. So learn the cloud, Sebastian. Don't learn AWS. Learn the cloud and you can work for AWS. Learn AWS and you probably can't work anywhere, because the only place you could work by just knowing AWS would be AWS. But guess what? Their customers are using multiple clouds too. So even still, it's not good enough. So learn the cloud, don't learn the AWS. That's how you get hired. So if you know what a load balancer is, a network load balancer, and you learn all about network load balancers the way we teach it, then you know whether it's an Elastic load balancer or an Azure load balancer or a cloud load balancer on Google, you don't care because it's the same tech. Building architects learn how to design the building. How tall is the building? How much wind does it have to deal with? They don't worry about where you buy the bricks. So you want to be a cloud architect and you really want to get a great career, we got to elevate out of AWS. Start thinking about the transformation of our customers' business, because that's what we architects do, Sebastian. We transform the customer's business with technology. So we got to stop thinking about the tech, start thinking about the customer's business, start thinking about the things and ways we can improve the customer's business, and then we pick the tech from the vendors. That's how we do it as architects. So Sebastian, it's a complete and total shift in everything. It's not the AWS piece. It is, what is the business problem we're trying to solve? That's where we start. And then we think of the tech that can do it. Then we present that tech back to the customer and we sell the customers. You've got to have good sales skills. So Sebastian, those are the skills that are necessary. We have a cloud architect career development program. We get people hired every day of the week and we love it and it's cost effective. I worked really hard to take a program that should be $25,000 and make it a single day's pay for the cloud architect, because I don't need to work and I love running this company and I love it when multiple people every day say, guess what, I got cloud hired, or at least when people say it almost every day, sometimes multiple times per day, but it's constant. And I love that, Sebastian. So that's the point. Get the skills. Those are the skills you need, and get yourself cloud hired and you'll do fantastic. Chris, you can bring in the next one. Daniel Pike. That's a great example. He hasn't even sent a resume out and people are searching for him on LinkedIn. And that's because, Daniel, you're one of our students. What happens is you're already doing some things on your social media. You've mentioned us. People are seeing you're starting to do things. So that's the key, Daniel. As you build your portfolio and as you build your brand, and the more you've learned about cloud architecture, the more you're able to keep adding to your LinkedIn profile. And each day, as you add a little more, people are going to find you. So that's the key, Daniel. The key is go out there every day. We deepen our knowledge base, write something great, let the world see what you have to offer, and the world's going to come to you. So that's the key, Daniel. The world will come to you. You don't even have to look for it. Once you reach a certain level of competency and brand building, that's why I'm so busy building people's brands. I don't want my people to have to look for a job. I get multiple offers per day and I don't look for them because I built a brand. So there's two ways you can do things in life. There's the brute force way, which is you just fight, and you never get ahead. Or build a brand, grow that brand, and have the world fight to hire you and compete who's going to pay you more. I personally say build the brand. You think Mercedes would have the brand if it wasn't that? If Apple didn't have the Apple brand, do you think they could charge the prices they do for a phone? I think this was $1,300, my iPhone. I mean, seriously, it's because of the brand, not because of the tech that's in there. Now, I love my iPhone. It's great. I know how to use it. It's simple to use. But without that brand, it wouldn't be $1,300. It might be $300 or $400. The brand is what makes it desirable. Now, it's desirable to me because I know how to use it and it's simple and I don't have time to learn anything else. But people buy it for the brand. The brand is what packs those stores there, not people that are like, okay, this is simple, I don't need a manual and I like it. It's the brand. So keep that in mind. And Daniel, I'm proud. I'm happy. That's fantastic. People are going to start reaching out to you more and more and more every day of the week. Chris, if you can bring in the next one. And anyway, and while Chris is bringing in the next one, if you guys have any questions, please bring them forward, and we love answering questions here. Charisse, what is Salesforce Cloud Solution Architect? What is Salesforce Cloud Solution Architect? Okay, so Salesforce is a company that's done lots of things in the sales space, ERP systems, and lots of other things. And realistically speaking, I'm getting this question asked a lot, Charisse. What you really need to do is figure out what you want to do. Now, you said Cloud Solutions Architect. So, Charisse, I'm going to give you the same advice. Don't worry about the Salesforce cloud. Don't worry about the AWS cloud. Don't worry about the Azure cloud. Learn the cloud. Now, when you know the cloud, Charisse, then you can work on any cloud, anywhere, anytime. And it really doesn't matter. So it goes back to the, learn what you're doing principle. So if you learn, for example, Charisse, what is a virtual machine? And then you learn what is a container. And then you know what is a firewall and how a firewall works and how a load balancer works and how block storage works and object storage works and file storage works and VPN concentrators, et cetera, et cetera. When you know what all the tech is, the architecture piece is just learning how to design these components to work together. So All these clouds, Charisse, are pretty much the same. The OpenStack Ansible cloud that I run in my house, I've got 9 servers in my house. Several of them we're dedicating to our own OpenStack cloud. What is a cloud, Charisse? It's nothing more than you take a data center. Here's a cloud filled with servers, storage, a regular old school data center, Charisse. Then you install a Linux kernel on all your systems. You take a couple of servers, big cloud, more than a couple, and you dedicate it to be the orchestration or the control plane of the cloud. And then the rest of your servers just basically register with the control plane of the cloud. And when I create a virtual machine, the cloud controllers just determine where the virtual machines are going to go. So Charisse, there is nothing of cloud computing. It's a term we made up. A cloud is nothing more than a network and a data center that's been virtualized. So it's the same tech, Charisse, we've worked with for the last 30 years. They just gave it a new name. In fact, Charisse, my first cloud was in 1997. I worked with it called Frame Relay. The next cloud I worked with in 1998 or 1999 was ATM. In 2000, I worked with the BGP RFC 2547 cloud. In 2002, I started working with the VPLS cloud. So I've been working with clouds before they even called them. Well, they were called clouds, but the point is cloud computing is not new. So don't worry about what is Salesforce. They're a company that's involved in cloud like every other company. There's hundreds and thousands of companies at this point that actually have clouds, and that's not their main business. Now, will they be there and big in the future? Who knows? But you can look at it this way. If you learn the cloud and you focus your skills on Azure and AWS, you've covered probably 90% of the market. So when it comes to learning a specific cloud, here's my recommendation. Learn the cloud, not a cloud. That way you always know what to do. When you get certified or focus on making one cloud, because you should have one home cloud. My home cloud is AWS. Excuse me, it's the one that I know best. When I focus on one cloud, I focus on becoming great at that one cloud, but I still know enough about all the other clouds to be able to do whatever I need anywhere, anytime. So pick the big one for your certifications. I suggest AWS or Azure. I like to see people get either the Azure Expert or the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. It's kind of their intro level cloud cert. And I know they don't sound intro level, but you have to understand where I come from. The CCIE is 75,000 pages of reading. The AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional is about 500 pages of reading. It's still kind of intro level when we're talking about skills necessary to work. So that's my recommendations. Now, a cloud solution architect on any of these companies, regardless, Charisse, is a system designer. A cloud solution architect is not a software engineer. A cloud architect, solutions architect does not code. They do not configure. They do not go to the API. The person is a systems designer. They are a hybrid executive / technology professional. Charisse, the architect design systems, just like a building architect designs systems. A building architect designs the building. A construction crew builds the building. Architects like me design the systems. The cloud engineers build the systems. So hope I answered your question there, Charisse. And if you've got further questions, I would love to go dive deeper and answer them for you. Now, Chris, if you want to bring in the next one, from Captain Omaro, coming from a user design experience and business consulting background and watching your video explaining the different types of architects, you knew you wanted to be an enterprise architect. That is a fantastic perspective. So I know you and I have actually exchanged some messages going back and forth. Becoming an enterprise architect is the best place to be long-term. So where would you start? So the first thing that you would have to do is you'd have to learn how to design the systems. Because even as an enterprise architect, you're still going to have those fundamental architecture skills. So Captain Omaro, the first thing that I would do is I would learn the network and the data center, which is the same for all the cloud architects, Captain Omaro. So you're going to have to do that first. So you're going to have to learn the network and the data center, which means learning routing and switching. After you learn the routing and the switching from the network, and then you learn the servers, the virtualization, the firewalls, the containers, the VPN concentrators, your block storage, your object storage, your file storage. Then you've got basically there. So once you want to understand how that works, then you have to learn how to design those systems. Because those are your basic systems. And why am I saying cloud systems? The cloud systems are the same systems that we use in the data center. Nothing's different. So you can either learn pure network in the data center, or you can learn pure network at data center and cloud. In today's world, everything going to the cloud, you also have to know the cloud. Now, when you're done that, and that's going to take you some time, and that's going to take you some work to do, then you need to do a different kind of business. So as an enterprise architect, you're now a director or VP level position at the world's largest organization. So these enterprise architecture roles can be $300,000 to $500,000 a year roles, and they're great roles. But in order to have that, you're going to have extreme business acumen, so MBA level knowledge. After you have to have that, you're going to have extreme emotional intelligence, extreme presentation skills. You're going to have to be comfortable being in front of the CEO of trillion-dollar companies all the time, because these are the kind of things that you're going to be doing as an enterprise architect. So lots of business skills, lots of emotional intelligence, lots of presentation skills, lots of gravitas. So Captain Umro, first, I would learn how to become a cloud architect. Get real good at that. Then after you become a cloud architect and you're employed for 2 to 3 years, that's when you pile on the extra leadership training. That's when you pile on the extra emotional intelligence training. That's when you pile on extra business acumen. That's where you master your negotiation skills. You master your ROI modeling skills. You become an expert at dealing with functional, intuitive, and analytical personality types. Your neurolinguistic programming skills are so good that you can walk into a room and establish rapport by design with someone in a second, identify their visual, auditory, kinesthetic types, and instantly, within seconds, know to switch in your mind. These are the enterprise architect roles, Captain Emerald, and I think it is a great role, and I'd love to help you get there. So first, take an architect role that's a semi-hybrid role. So don't go with the technical architect role, because that might be that's too technical. Get something like a solution architect or a cloud architect role. Do that for 2 to 3 years. In these roles, master the tech that's out there. Learn more about the business. Learn about the tools that you can use to transform business, because you can't transform a business without knowing. And Captain Omer, we enterprise architects are going to be working in multi-billion-dollar businesses. They're the people that are going to pay us and need us to do business process redesign, to technology system redesign, to work with business architects and the cloud architects that the organization has. So these are really senior roles. So that's what you would do. Go become a cloud architect first. We've got a cloud architect career development program, for example. After you become a cloud architect, work as a cloud architect, get more leadership training, more presentation training, more executive communication training. So our enterprise world would be like our cloud architect career development program, and then our leadership program. And that would get someone to the enterprise architect world, that would get them to the distinguished architect world, that would get them to director or VP level in sales or leadership. They're all the same way. So Captain Armor, we're talking about a director level or above position. And when I say director level or above position, I'm talking about director level or above at a company like a Cisco. So a director level above at a Cisco would be like a senior vice president or even a CEO at a smaller business. So we're talking about a very senior role here. We're talking about a great role that you can do. We're talking about a role that could be the best thing you've ever done, and I strongly encourage you to do so. So first, cloud architect, first, do it for 2 to 3 years, hone those business skills, hone those leadership skills, and then take the enterprise architect role. It's a transformation role. It is a fantastic role. And you can either ride that and make a total career at this hybrid executive / technology professional, or you can go from that into a VP role or into other leadership roles. So these are the ways that you do this. There you go. You've got it. Become a cloud architect first. Get used to making those smaller transformations, which can become some pretty big transformations. The better of a cloud architect you become, then bias it towards leadership, and then poof, you're an enterprise architect, and the job is absolutely incredible. Strongly recommended, and I love it. I've done it myself. Cloud learner. If I don't like to sell, would a cloud architect for me, would a better role be a better fit? After watching some of your videos, that's what I'm thinking. Well, cloud learner, I'm going to tell you the reality. The reality is, if you don't like to sell, your career will be severely limited no matter what your job is. So my best recommendation for you is get comfortable selling. Every job without skills will be limiting. So the only kind of jobs that you can do without sales, technically, cloud learner, are engineering roles. Now, even if you're an engineer, you still need to know sales. So let's say you're an engineer and you're one of these really smart engineers that doesn't want to learn sales. You come up with an idea that's a solution to a big problem. and you want to tell your manager about it, and you want the team to build your fix. If you can't sell your solution, guess what? It doesn't matter how good of an engineer you are, you'll never be able to get the job done because you won't be able to influence your management team and you won't be able to influence your peers. Now, Cloud Learner, if you don't focus on all these leadership skills, you're never going to be able to build a team on demand and you won't be able to get promoted through the ranks either. So that's my recommendation for you is learn sales. If you don't, if your career can go from here to here and you don't do sales, your career is going to stop at the bottom. So knowing sales, I strongly recommend it. So if you don't want to do sales and you don't want to be communicating with people and you don't want to do any of these leadership things, you can still do an engineering role. But realize your limitation as an engineer is going to top out at junior to mid-level roles. You'll never get beyond that without sales skills. So focus on sales. But if you don't focus on sales, here's my recommendation. Pick a small area Cloud Learner, something really small, really, really small, and something really in demand. And focus on being so good, so great, that you're so indispensable to the world that they're still going to come after you. And the best way I can describe it, amongst the leadership and technology, there's the two approaches. Generally speaking, 80% of what we hire are going to be people that we like. Every once in a while, we'll have someone that doesn't have sales skills. And as hiring managers, we prefer not to hire them. We prefer to people that come in that are bubbly and happy and energetic and enthusiastic and emotionally intelligent and hard workers and bring out the best in others. So without those skills, it'll even be harder to get hired too. So again, learn those skills. But if you don't want to learn those skills, be so good that you're what the hiring managers would consider to be, I don't really want this person, but I have no choice because they're the best in the world. And I'll pay them what they want because I have no choice. They're the best in the world. So Cloud Learner, if you don't like to sell, focus on becoming so good, so much better than everyone else that the world has to come to you anywhere. So going to be a lot easier to learn some skills. But if you choose not to do that, and you remember, sales is necessary for everything. Sales is necessary when you want to ask your manager for a raise. Sales is necessary when you want to tell your manager you want to go on a 2-week vacation. Sales is necessary when you want to present your idea to get funding for your idea. Sales is necessary when you want to build a team and you need to put people on your team. Sales skills is necessary when you need help on a project because you're going to have to sell the manager into giving you someone else for help. Sales is necessary for everything, and sales is necessary to close the interview. If you close the interview without sales, the manager will not be as impressed if your sales skills are less good, which will drive your salary down and reduce your likelihood of getting hired. So Cloud Learner, please learn sales. It'll do wonders for your career. Now, I'm not asking you to be a sales rep. I'm just saying, please learn sales. Don't learn sales. It'll severely limit your career. Even in medicine, I studied sales because as Cloud Learner, when I've got to give someone a medication, the medication may not be something they want to take, but if they don't take the medication, they may die. So even doctors and nurse practitioners and physician's assistants study sales. So I recommend you learn sales. But if you don't learn sales, make sure you work so hard to be the best in the world that people will be like, okay, well, they're that good. They're just so good. They didn't have to learn skills. And the only way you'll ever be that good is if you take everything and you narrow your focus down to something that small. So that would be my recommendation. Again, please learn sales. Chris, do you want to bring in the next one? Tide, do we teach AWS Advanced Networking in our program? Tide, I got to make this clear. The AWS Advanced Networking is a very junior introduction to networking. In our program, Tide, we build competent, capable, and people that get hired. So we go much more into our program than the AWS Advanced Networking. That's a certification course, Tide, and certification doesn't cover what's necessary to get hired. What we do is we give people as much as we can for free. It's a junior program, and we do all the junior training like CCNA level training, Certified Solution Architect Professional Training, AWS Advanced Networking. Anything that we consider junior or foundational training, we give away completely for free. Remember, in our program, we're getting people hired. So What we give away for free, like our AWS Advanced Networking, is far better than those certification courses that are out there that you can find that are made by people that have never worked in networking in their life and don't even know what networking is, and now they have an AWS Advanced Networking. And those people watch my channel, they know who they are, but that's neither here nor there. What we teach in our AWS Advanced Networking for free is far better than any of those programs. And we do these programs for free for the following reasons. We're not in the certification business, Ty. That nothing to do with what we do. We're in the I get people hired business. I get people paid more. I get people promoted. That's our world. That's our business. We have nothing to do with certifications in our business. The only reason I do any certifications, and the reason we do it completely for free, is I bought all the other certification programs that were out there that I could find. And they were all so bad that I felt bad for the community. So we do free AWS certification programs to make sure that we give you something for free, the community, that's better than anybody else's paid. But our paid is about 10 times deeper than anything that we do for free. So do we teach AWS Advanced Networking on our program? We go a lot more than AWS Advanced Networking on our program. We go into what's necessary to get people hired and to get them paid more and to get them promoted. So do we teach AWS Advanced Networking? We teach about 10 to 100 times deeper than that on our program, Tide, for everything that we do, at least 10 times deeper. I hope I answered your question. We get people hired, not just certified. Certification is kind of the stop that we do. The certification is honestly something that we do so that I can call my recruiters and say, hey, guess what? They're certified. And my recruiters can say, hey, Mike, we know certifications don't mean anything either, but it sure makes it easier to get that person to interview. So thank you for getting the certifications that we help recommend. So that's why we do certifications. It builds your brand enough. Remember, we're brand builders. We're perception builders. Do you know the difference between a $100,000 engineer and a $300,000 engineer? My manager asked me 20 years ago. You know what? He told me, and it changed my life forever. He told me it's not the tech piece. He said it's the communication piece, the transformation piece, the emotional intelligence piece. So yeah, we do it. So Ty, do we teach AWS Advanced Networking? That's what we give away for free. You can only imagine what we teach in our paid program. That's why our students get hired every day. Chris, if you want to bring in the next question. Mahadevi Sutar. Hello from India. Oh, it's so nice to speak to you. We speak to so many wonderful people in India each day. Is the AWS SA certification imperative? And please name backbone of cloud engineer role. I don't know what you mean with that. What is a must with respect to knowledge to be job ready? Okay, so I'm going to say this. No certifications are necessary to get hired. I've got friends at AWS, Google, everywhere that have been hired by them in very senior, distinguished, and principal roles without a single cloud certification whatsoever. Now, Mr. Sutar, they all had a networking background or a data center background. If you don't have a networking or a data center background, these roles are going to be hard, so you're going to need some training on these things. So, is a certification imperative? The answer is no. Having said that, without at least a minimum entry-level certification of the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, it's going to be much harder to get an interview. So we view the SAP certification as a minimum entry-level certification. Now, what is a cloud engineer do? Now, we cloud architects are system designers. So as architects, we design. The engineers are builders. So to build, the cloud engineer is an expert builder, which means the cloud engineer has to be the expert at configuring things, the cloud via the CLI, via the management console, as well as know the API. Now, the cloud engineer is a doer. So the cloud engineer might need to know Python. The cloud engineer might need to know Node.js and be able to configure these things. The cloud engineer probably needs to write a bash script as well as a PowerShell script. The cloud engineer is a builder, so they're probably going to need to know things like Terraform, infrastructure as code. In the old days, CloudFormation templates, but who would use CloudFormation templates in today's world? I can't think of anybody, and here's the reason why. Nobody, except for 3% of the world, only uses a single cloud. So CloudFormation is only AWS, so Terraform is everybody, so you need to know that. So these are the things the cloud engineer builds. So if you want to be a cloud engineer, you're going to have to know how to build everything. Now, Mr. Sutar, the cloud engineer is a much more technical role than the cloud architect. This is a deeply technical role. So you've got to spend some time building. So you want to be a cloud engineer? Go hit that AWS management console and build stuff. Build 3-tier websites. Build containers. Build container orchestration strategies. I mean, literally speaking, build it all. Build a bunch of transit networks. Build some shared services VPCs. I mean, you name it. Just build anything you possibly can. So as a cloud engineer, you want to build, and build some more, because that's what engineers do. We architects, we design systems, and we transform custom organizations with our designs. And when we're done designing, we hand it to the team of cloud engineers to build it. So you want to be a builder, you got to be a great builder. So those are the things. I'm going to say it's probably harder for most people to become a cloud engineer than a cloud architect because of the depth of technical knowledge you're going to need to do all this building. So that's realistically speaking what it's going to take for you to get there.
So I popped that up. He clarified at the end. He was asking about the basics of a cloud engineer role as far as technical competency, I believe.
Okay. So I think we covered that now, Sutar. So the basics are being able to set up everything and know all the intricate details of everything. So all the intricate details and limitations of the load balancers, all the intricate details and configuration things of something like S3, all the intricate details and limitations of the AWS implementation thing, for example. So it's going to be intricate details of everything. Those are the things that you need to know as the architect. I mean, as the engineer. Whereas the architect, it's more the design. Engineering, it's deep, in the weeds kind of sort of stuff. So those are the things that I recommend. Tide, hey Gibbs, you should be starting our program in a week. You did the math. And if you graduate in the summer, you're wondering if there are job opportunities in the summer. There's job opportunities constantly. Tide, I don't think you can understand how many hundreds of thousands of jobs that are out there right now. The problem is nobody can actually do the role because no one knows how to. Taking a certification course, which talks about the name of the service and how to configure it, doesn't prepare anybody for the job. So there's hundreds of thousands of these jobs out there, and there's nobody that can do it. So it looked like there was a second half of your question here. Tide, would I recommend you get the Google certification once you finish the program, since Google Cloud has big growth opportunities where you live in Canada? I don't know, Tide. And here's what I mean. I'm a Google professional cloud architect. I've got students in Canada that are. I've got one student that just took a really great job for a phone company in there. But we intentionally, with this particular student, did the Google Cloud one, but I made him do the AWS one too. And here's the reason. Google is 5% of the jobs that are out there. So Tide, by doing Google, you realistically speaking, first, you eliminate 95% of the jobs that are out there. And I hate that. So I love Google. Google has some great cloud options in Canada. So what I'd probably do if I was going to do that is I would do the Google Professional Cloud Architect, and then I would still do the AWS Solution Architect, minimum associate, probably professional. I don't think the Google certification is enough. So the key is if you wanted to do it, it could be an extra, it could be a bonus, and I don't have a problem with the bonus. But remember what the point of the certification is. The certification will not teach you the job at all. The certification will help you get an interview. So if you want something that's going to give you an interview with the maximum number of people, it's going to be Azure or AWS. Now, I do prefer the Google certification exam because there's a little architecture on there. It's a much better certification exam in my mind than the Certified Solution Architect Professional. The Certified Solution Architect Professional, in my mind, is more of a sales exam. All the names of these services, whereas the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam is 2/3 engineering, 1/3 architecture. So at least there's some architecture there. So do I recommend the Google Professional Cloud Architect certification? Generally, no. Having said that, if you did the Google Professional Cloud Architect and the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate, it would be okay. I know people know that I'm not a fan of the Certified Solution Architect Associate in most cases. The reason is, if you were experienced like me and you just wanted some certification on your resume that says I know AWS, The AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional is perfect because I've been building clouds for 25 years. Everybody knows Mike and cloud. They know me. So for me, I don't need any certification. So if I were to do the Certified Solution Architect Associate, it would be like, check, Mike's done some AWS training in his past. Or for people like my buddy Imram, who's going to come and help us and do some more demonstration. He's a dual CCIE. He's been working in networking forever like me. If he gets a Certified Solution Architect Associate, it's just a checkoff box. But unless you have 25 years experience, you need that professional as kind of your entry-level certification. So I'd say you could do it, but make sure you do an AWS certification with it. Although I'd probably do the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional first, Tide, and then do something else. Now, Tide, you got to remember, where is your biggest opportunity for growth in your career? This is the biggest place. What levers are you playing with? The levers are the most important thing. Tech Systems put it out. They had a really good paper. They're like, certification can raise your salary up to $10,000 a year. I'm like, yeah, so. And then one of the main certification providers jumped all over it. Certification can raise your salary by up to $12,000 a year. They added about $2,000 of inflation, but they neglected to look at what really matters. Soft skills training on average raises somebody's salary by 30%. The average cloud architect earns $155 a year. That's over $50,000 a year right there. Emotional intelligence training on average raises someone's salary $30,000 a year. So that's $80,000 a year over 30 years. That's $2.4 million by focusing on soft skills versus emotional intelligence. So Tide, the question I have for you is, which do you want to invest your time in? The $10,000 skill or the $80,000 skill? So after being an architect forever, after having 1,000,001 certifications in my youth, I learned that certifications are good to get an interview. But after, when you get that first job, focus on the things that really matter, and it's not the certifications. Focus on your high-value targets. That's your soft skills. It's your leadership. It's your emotional intelligence. Why do engineers max out at a certain pay? Because beyond that, it's about transforming the business. It's about getting closer to the money. So focus on your business acumen. Focus on your emotional intelligence side. Focus on your soft skills. That could be a $200,000 difference in your salary every year for the rest of your life when you build the whole package. Don't just focus on the tech. So I love the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam. I am one. I think it's a good exam and a good cert. But I still think unless you've got a huge background like me, you should focus on the things that matter most, which is in our program, get that AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. And then after that, if you want to spend a weekend doing the Google Professional Cloud Architect, you'll be able to. Now, Tide, I got to tell you, if you've done our training, it took me 2 days to do the Google Professional Cloud Architect. Why? Because we get so deep into the tech that when you know what virtualization is, because you built it and you've designed it and you've done it, then if it's a compute engine versus an EC2 instance versus an Azure virtual machine, it's all the same to you. So none of it makes a difference to you. And if it's an elastic load balancer or a cloud load balancer, it won't matter. Or if it's DynamoDB, Apache Cassandra, MongoDB, or Cloud Bigtable, it won't matter to you because when you know the tech, it's easy. So that's why I say learn the tech, learn the cloud, not the cloud provider. DynamoDB, Cloud Bigtable, who cares? If I want to go to the store to buy a red brick, I don't care which store I bought the red brick from. So that's the thing. If it's appropriate for you to get the Google certification, yeah, get the Google certification. It's great. But, this is realistically speaking where I'm coming from, and that's why I wanted to make sure we talked about these things. You'll be good to go either way, Todd. We can get you to your goals. Chris, do you want to bring in the next one? And if you guys have more questions, please bring them in. CEO Troll. How does one relate to C-level executives and customers? Security architect needs to be transformed for cloud. Well, CEO Troll, first, when you've got to evaluate someone's security, you got to start with the CEO and ask them, what is the value of their assets? Starts there. You don't spend $1 trillion to protect a $2 asset. So the first thing you need to do is you need to find out, what is the company trying to protect? First, is it intellectual property? Is it brand? Is it life? For example, when I deal with healthcare organizations, if they get hacked, people die. Very different priority. And a bank, if they get hacked, not only could their systems be down, which can cost millions of dollars a minute, but the brand damage for a bank could be catastrophic. So we have to figure out first, what are we protecting? Two, what is the value we're protecting? Three, what happens if the organization gets hacked? What is the cost? Those are the first things. And unless we figure this out, CEO Trell, none of it matters. And that is there. So then when we get the customer to quantify, our intellectual property is worth $27.6 billion. And when we know that the intellectual property is worth $27.6 billion, only then can we say, okay, given that this is the risk your organization is facing based upon statistics. So then we can look at the expected value of a breach. We can look at the statistical analysis, the frequency that organizations get hit. So we can say, for example, if 3% of organizations get hit per year and the value of a breach is $26 billion or $3 billion lost earnings, we can take the 3%, multiply the 3% times the $3 billion or whatever the quantified mistake is. Then we actually know the total cost per year that an organization's risk is. Then what we need to do is we need to find a solution that mitigates that risk without costing much more than that's necessary. So maybe if a solution costs 3 years worth of risk, the customer will buy that. So that's how we quantify the solution. Now it's up to us as architects to tell the customer, look, the cloud's not more secure than your data center. In fact, the cloud's less secure than your data center, because in your data center, if you got hacked, people can only hack you. The cloud, no matter how great it is a massive high-value target. Attack Azure, get all their customers. Oh, wait, somebody just did that a few months ago. Attack AWS, get access to AWS's customers. So being on the cloud, just because by nature of being a high-value target makes it more risky. Then, CEO Trell, the risks on the cloud become even higher for the following reasons. In the data center, we can rack and stack our physical firewalls that can do heartbeats in between them. On the cloud, we can't go there. We can't go buy the best physical firewall we want, rack it, plug it in, and use a bunch of them. We can't do that. We are either stuck with the cloud native services, which are okay, or we go to the marketplace and we buy enterprise-grade firewalls that run on virtual machines. And because they're now running on virtual machines, which aren't high availability systems that don't have the ability to heartbeat between them, now we've got to use load balancers to load balance the redundancy. So CEO Trell, it's up to us as system designers to first quantify the problem, quantify the expected value of the problem, do the solution, design the solution, and then do the ROI model to show that the expected value of the return on the investment capital that you've done is much greater than the risk. That's how you sell it to C-level executives. It starts with the quantification of the problem. So CEO Trell, so much less time focused on the actual tech, so much more time focused on the business acumen. And that's why CEO Trell, and I see people going, I want to learn this thing, and I want to learn this thing, and I want to learn this thing, and I want to learn this thing. And I keep saying, stop. Focus on the fundamentals, system design for the architects, and the business reasons that organizations are to do this. If people focus on the tech exclusively and learning this cloud and this cloud and this thing and this thing and this thing, they won't learn the business. So CEO Trell, I want you to refocus, because I know some of those things, some of those Slack messages. I want you to focus more on the business piece and less on those other things, because that's how we take someone and we make them a great architect. Remember, if we focus too much on the tech, we become great cloud engineers or great cloud security engineers. If we focus on the business piece to do this, we become architects. That's the difference between the engineer and the architect. The architect starts with those executives and does all those things we're talking about. The architect, like me, then gives it to the cloud engineer who knows the tech 10 times better than the architect. And then they go build it. That's the key. That's the area to focus. So it's not like, let me learn Salesforce today and let me learn Google tomorrow and let me learn this cool piece of technology and let me learn this piece of technology. CEO Trell is building the fundamentals of technologies and just them. Maybe it's a CEH master as a cert, or a CISSP, or a CCSP with the Certified Solution Architect Professional. Learn those from the certs, then get those fundamental, strong technology knowledge and then focus the rest on the business and leadership, not the tech. That's the difference between the architect and there. And you can't do any of this, and you can't communicate any of this to the C-level executives unless half of your time is spent focused on that. That's how you do it. And there's some extra ROI modeling videos for you, CEO Trell, that Chris actually has on his system, and they will be added to the course very, very soon. We filmed them about 2 months ago. They've been sitting with the video editors, and they're working on them one by one by one. You'll have extra ROI modeling training and things like that coming real soon. Chris, do you want to bring in the next one? Diamond Hawkins, what's the path to be a cloud engineer? What certification projects, internships should you be looking for? Okay, so Diamond Hawkins, this is not like becoming a cloud architect. So this is going to take a very different path. I would say, unless you've got a background, the minimum certification for anything is the equivalent, excuse me, is either an Azure expert, a certified solution architect professional, or Google professional cloud architect. Now, for engineering, Google has like a professional engineer, I believe, as well. So I would get whatever the strongest engineering certification is. Now, realistically speaking, as a cloud engineer, it's all about building. So on the AWS webpage, they give you lots of sample labs. I'd go do all of them. I'd make sure I do 300 to 500 of these sample labs minimum to be a cloud engineer. Now, what else? As a cloud engineer, you're going to be doing a lot of building. Whereas we architects don't build, don't touch. You engineers do it all the time. And we need you engineers because otherwise nothing would ever get done. And the cloud engineers are the most deeply technical. So how do we build more efficiently? We use Terraform. So you're going to need to know Terraform, and you're going to be real strong with Terraform. You're going to need to know Python because you're going to be doing some automation. You're going to have to know Node.js for your IAM kind of stuff. You know, these kind of things are just going to have to be there. Then hands-on. Get used to the API, get familiar with REST APIs. You're going to do those things, go hands-on some more. So configure API or software development kit, as well as the CLI, as well as the API. Those are the kind of things that you should be building. You should be literally building anything. Go volunteer and find some people that want to go somewhere. Take their systems, move them on the cloud, go take their websites there, take their HR systems, take anything you can on there. It's really, the engineering world is really a build. So the good news, you can build a lot of this stuff for free. You can get with the free AWS account. I mean, just build some more, and then use multiple accounts if you have to, but just keep building. Literally speaking, I think I'd go to the AWS. They've got some good lab programs for cloud engineers, and I'd literally do 5 labs a day, and I'd probably do it for 3 to 6 months straight if I wanted to be a cloud engineer. And if I did that, they'll be there. Now, I also got to tell you, Diamond Hawkins, I said I wasn't going to do it, but I'm doing it. I tasked some really great engineers and professionals to build us a cloud engineering program on how to get your first cloud engineering job. And that's coming soon. And of course, it'll have lots of labs. It'll have some Python, some Terraform, and really all those other skills to really make someone an incredible cloud engineer. But that's how you would do it, Diamond Hawkins. Build those fundamental skills. Get great at building things. Build the scripting skills, the PowerShell scripts, the Bash shell scripts, the Python scripts, the Node.js, IAM kind of stuff. These are the kind of things that you need to do to be a cloud engineer. And there are plenty of those things that are out there. So I hope I answered your question. And if you've got more questions, I'd love to answer them. Chris, please feel free to bring in the next one. Ron Miller. Hi, Mike. Would you suggest new aspiring cloud architect students to learn sales? I don't think it's possible, Ron Miller, to do the job without learning sales.
He said where?
Oh, where? Okay, so Ron Miller, in our training program, we cover it. If you're not with us, Dale Carnegie Institute teaches sales. There are lots of sales training programs that are out there. There's a little red book of selling that's not too bad. There was a book called Selling to Vito that's not too bad. I've taken a lot of sales training, and we do lots of sales training in our program because without it, it's impossible to get the job. So I would say that those are the things that I would say. You know, Dale Carnegie's techniques are old, but you know what? There was a lot that's right. But Ron, I say sales isn't really about something that you find in a sales book. What is sales? So after working in sales for a long period of time, I learned the secret to sales, Ron, as the follows. Always give your customer more value than you charge. So, here's an example. So we've got a cloud architect career development program. We charge $1,000 and then we discount it. Most of my students leave the program with $150,000 to $200,000 a year job within 4 to 6 months. Now, if I can raise someone's salary $100,000 a year for an $800 payment one time, I delivered my customer an incredible return on investment. If I can make someone an extra $100,000 for the next 10 years, that's $1 million. If they paid me $1,000 to do so, look at that return on investment. So the first thing that I will tell you, Ron Miller, is in sales is to quantify the problem that your customers have. So what does that mean? If a hospital, for example, and I'm going to do the math with you, has 1,000 nurses, and by the way, nurses are the most expensive course of the hospital. So let's say in the US, the average nursing salary is $50 per hour. It's somewhere between $36 and $70 an hour based upon the city you're in. So let's just say $50, well, 36 and about 58 to 60. So let's just say it's $50 an hour. So if a hospital has 1,000 nurses, and for example, and they pay those nurses $50 an hour, and we can save the hospital 1 hour of nursing time per day times 1 times 365. What that realistically means is if we can implement a technology solution that can save 1 hour of nursing time per day, we can save a hospital $18.2 million just by saving the hospital 1 nurse per day. Now, Ron Miller, if you want to be in sales, you've got to learn your customer's business. So I know how to practice medicine. I was an EMT, paramedic, nurse practitioner, so I know these roles. So now, with that knowledge, if I told you just saving an hour of a nursing time each day to the average hospital would equal about $18 million. Now, Ron, here's what I want you to then look at. Then look at what the workflow is of the nurse. If I told you that a nurse spends 20% of their time looking for equipment, meaning of an 8-hour day, they spend 2 hours just looking for equipment. And now me, as an architect, says, wow, there's this thing called an RFID tag, which would enable me to find an IV pump or a wheelchair or anything that the nurses are looking for in seconds, saving 2 hours per day. Poof, I just saved the hospital now $36 million a year by doing nothing other than looking at the workflow. Now, Ron Miller, when I go to that customer and I say, hey, I've got an RFID tagging solution for you that's going to cost you $500,000, and it's going to save you $35.5 million over the next 2 years. Ron, do you think the customer is going to buy it? Not going to buy what I have to say? They're going to buy it, of course, because they're going to look at it and say, wow. So the key to sales, Ron, is being able to have the business acumen to be able to quantify your customer's problem. And you won't find this in a lot of those books. Then be able to evaluate the business and do an ROI model. So, this is a cross between things that are taught in MBA programs, things that are taught in sales programs. So, when we teach this, we do the following. Like, when we have our architecture classes each week, we have the students design the architecture, but they also have to present it back. And they have to present it back in a manner that's relevant to the CEO. So that's how we train our people. We make our people sell to me. I am a CEO. So that's how we do it. We give our people hands-on sales experience. We give the knowledge. We teach how to sell. So the key to sales, Ron, is first, identify your customer's problem, design something that solves their problem, make sure your solution costs much less than the value gained by your customer. Make sure that whatever you design helps your customer. Never design anything that is not in your customer's business. If a customer asks you to do something, you do it fast. If the customer sends an email, you respond immediately or at the fastest period of time. You go to that customer site, you spend that time with the customer, and you make sure that customer knows it for real, that their success is the main thing that you care about. And you must care about it that much. When the customer can feel that you care and know that you care and know that everything you're doing is in their best interest, they will buy from you every time. So yes, I was wildly successful in sales, but the way I sell is I solve people's problems. That's it. I solve people's problems. And by solving problems, that's the secret to sales. So no, I don't want you to read some cheesy sales book that's going to teach you, hey, come in, oh, your hair looks nice today, or your shoes look good today, or by the way, it's a nice suit. Sorry, you're working out. I don't want any of that. I want someone that's going to come in there, be authentic, be liked, be trusted, be respected. They can do it the right way. They can be someone that can make the customer's business more profitable, to make your customers happier, to raise the energy in the room, to save the customers money, to increase sales by 10%. Ron, that is the secret to sales. That's the way I teach it. I teach my students how to quantify a problem, how to solve a problem. That is how you sell. So Ron Villier, that's the way I do it. Thank you so much for your comments about our service to the community. Took lots of sales training in my life, and only when I took those kind of trainings. Plus, I also know some executives that have run sales for lots of organizations. And when I speak to them constantly, and I'm constantly speaking to some of the best salespeople, they're like, Mike, the secret to sales is make your customer successful. So make your customer successful, and you will always sell, and you will never have a problem. Now, Ron Miller, there is the persuasive side of this. Now, the work of Robert Cialdini on persuasion and exercising influence is fantastic. A little bit of work from neurolinguistic programming is good. Lots of time should be spent studying sociology, or the patterns of people and behaviors. Understanding of psychology is also really critical to sales skills. Understanding of economics and how people move and supply and demand curves is also. So all these things going into successful sales. So it's not something that you're going to find in one book. And we bury this inside of our training program. Each lesson has got a little bit more in there. So what we're doing is we're adding it here and here and here and here and here in little bite-sized chunks as part of our whole thing. So in the end, we're doing comprehensive sales, but we're not calling attention to it. Everything we do as an architect is all hidden. It's the transformation, it's all hidden. So what we have to do is we have to do it in a way that we get it across. So that's how we teach sales. We teach every one of those things to solve customer problems. That's our approach. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. Roger Marine, you have a BS in cybersecurity. Good. And would like to specialize in Cisco firewall security, Red Hat Linux. Would this help you become a better cloud engineer? You're also learning Python. Chris, you want to go back to the first half so I can look at that one more time? You have a BS in cybersecurity and would like to specialize in Cisco firewall security, Red Hat. Would this help you become a better engineer? So Roger Marine, if you want to specialize in Cisco firewall security, go work for Cisco. And I mean that in the most respectful sort of way. I worked for Cisco for a decade. It was the best company in the world. But if you want to specialize in Cisco firewall security, your only career option is to go work for Cisco. That's the only thing that I would suggest. Red Hat Linux is also great because Red Hat Linux is the infrastructure. So if you wanted to study security, Roger Marine, that would be different. But if you want to study Cisco firewall security, that's just a Cisco appliance. So no, that's not going to help you in your career. So the key is learning firewalls would be a huge help for you. So the first is figuring out what you want to do. So if you wanted to be a cloud security engineer, I would go out there and get one of the 3 certifications and no other certifications. I would skip any kind of like Security Plus. It's not going to do anything for you. I would, unless you want to work, I would keep it if you wanted to work for the U.S. government, but otherwise I wouldn't focus. I would do the certified solution. I would do the CISSP, the CEH Master, or sorry, the Offensive Security Professional, and I would also do the CCSP. They're the only security certifications that I would actually even think about. So now studying firewalls, yes, but I wouldn't do Cisco firewall security because then you're not going to know what to do with Palo Alto, and you're not going to know what to do with Fortinet, and you're not going to know what to do with Checkpoint, and you're also not going to know what to do with in the 2% of the time that you're going to use WAF. So first, learn security, not security from a single company. So I do think learning firewalls would be great for you, but firewalls, you need to know IDS, IPS systems, next generation firewalls that do it both, understanding how the VPN concentrators work, understanding of access control list, understanding of all the other end-to-end security things, which is far, far, far more than firewalls. Then Red Hat Linux, great. Learning Python, yeah, those are the skills to be a cloud engineer. But you're studying cybersecurity, and then you're telling me cloud engineer, and they're not necessarily the same. So The key is, do you want to be a cloud engineer or a cloud security engineer? So if you want to be a cloud security engineer, I just told you what to do. If you want to be a cloud engineer, I'd focus a little more on I'd learn a little more about Linux. I'd learn a little bit more about networking than security, because the networking is going to be more critical for the job than security. Remember, as an engineer, remember the job is building. And what are you building? You're building a virtualized network and data center. So the networking would probably be more helpful than the security, unless you wanted to be a cloud security engineer, in which case then you're really good. But Python scripting, good. You're going to need to know some, well, it depends. If it's cloud security, you might be able to get away without the Terraform. But if you're going to do cloud engineer, you need to know Terraform. You're going to need to know Python, Node.js, Bash shell scripting, PowerShell scripting for the rare Windows stuff that you're going to have. Those would be the kind of cloud engineer skills. So yes, it will help you. But I encourage you to not focus on a single vendor, but instead focus on the end-to-end stuff. Now, actually, Roger Marine, and for everybody that's here, kind of have a special treat. This Friday, we're going to have the recruiters, or at least one of the recruiters, most likely the CEO of IT Excel, and they're going to come here. And I got to tell you, they've got some pretty nice jobs that are open right now, and they've got lots of them. They've even got what I consider to be they've got quite a few of them. But I do know that I wanted us to start talking about at some point this week. So there's lots of incredible opportunities that are actually out there. So by all means, it's a good start for you to go. Now, who has questions for me? I know everybody seems to be a little on the quiet side today. I know half of us are tired. I know yesterday I presented, I think, for 8 hours straight. We taught a course in the morning, and I know after the course we taught in the morning, we had the AWS Advanced Networking. And then last night we were going to do some advanced networking demo. But what ultimately happened is the person that was going to do the demo ran into a family emergency. So we actually did some architectural whiteboarding sessions, something that I only do exclusively for our students, but we did it free for the community. And boy, that was a lot of fun. You should have seen the messages that came to me. So let me let you know what's going on today. AWS Advanced Networking at noon. We're also going to have coming really, really soon. Not sure whether it's today, not sure whether it's tomorrow or even the next day, but we're going to be doing it. We're going to be doing all kinds of cool VPC configuration. We're going to be doing all kinds of peering and all kinds of demos with lots of fun stuff. So we're going to also, in addition to teaching architecture, for the cloud engineers that are out there, we're going to have some hands-on demo sessions. I mean, for us, we architects are all design, but the engineers are more hands-on builds. So we're going to do some of those things. Okay, Chris, do you have any more questions? I think I saw one just come in from Cloud Learner. Cloud Learner, you mentioned that only 3% of companies are using a single cloud vendor. How do we work on multi-cloud? Cloud Learner, it's the easiest thing in the world. There's two approaches to learning this. There's what I consider the wrong approach to learning the cloud and the right approach to learning the cloud. If, for example, someone learns they learn AWS only, and they know what an EC2 instance is and all the intricacies, and they know all about S3, and they know all about EBS, and all they learn is EBS and all that stuff. So if that's the case, what people actually do in those particular environments, then being multi-cloud is going to be impossible, because what's going to happen is the person's going to have to relearn it and relearn it and relearn it. But if you teach it and the way we teach it, Cloud Learner, I mean, when I get in my car, I was taught to drive a car. I was taught, the steering wheel goes this way. I was taught the gear shift, whether it's here or whether it's here, is how you put it in gear. The accelerator speeds up or slows down. The brake stops the car. The turn signals change the lanes. The lights turn and off. Now, I learned how to drive. This is what a stop sign means. This is what a traffic light means. I learned how to drive. It doesn't matter which card I get in. So Cloud Learner, here's the way we teach it. First, we teach what are routers. Then we talk about switches. We teach what are load balancers and how they work. Then we go into depth of block storage, object storage, file storage. Before we mention the name of a vendor once. Then what we do is we go into depth of each and everything. So see Cloud Learner when you're like me and you learn what all the tech is. Then I just go to the store and I buy my tech. So I have a cheat sheet, and all my students have a cheat sheet. And the cheat sheet is virtual machine. which is the server we're going to use in every cloud, Google Compute Engine, Oracle Virtual Machine, Azure Virtual Machine, AWS EC2. Then I know the service that I need to do. Load Balancer, Google, Cloud Load Balancer. Okay. AWS, Elastic Load Balancer, Azure Load Balancer. So that's what we actually do. So, your question is, how do you get it to work? Okay, so how do you get anything to work, Cloud Learner? You either have a direct connection or a VPN connection to it. And you SSH into these systems the way you do everything else. Nothing changes. It's all the same. So, if I am at my computer and I were to SSH into a Cisco router or a Juniper router, I'm still using SSH. So I'm not really sure I understand the question completely. You work on it the way you would work on any other system. A company has 2 data centers connected via direct connection. You work on them the same way. You SSH from one to the next. All 2 cloud providers is 2 data centers. So as long as you basically catch your connectivity either via a private line or via a VPN, as long as you set up your routing to make sure you have a path for it, you're going to be able to reach it. So I'm not completely sure that I really understand the question, because 2 clouds is no different than 2 data centers, which is no different than a remote office and a data center. It's just IP network connectivity. So that's all you.
So I'm about to put this up. I just typed it out. They sent it to me off YouTube. So I typed it out for them. So they're new, and they're trying, the way they put it, they're trying to figure out how to do Mercedes parts with Toyota. Like they're new. They have a high level understanding of how do I get it to work. Like they don't understand SSH and all that stuff.
Okay, Chris, great point. Okay, yeah. So for the folks that are new, and I think this is a great question, every cloud is nearly identical. Here's what happens. Switches, and it doesn't matter whether they say Meraki on them, whether they say Juniper, whether they say Cisco or Palo Alto or Fortinet, they all look like this, and they all work identically. The servers that are in AWS, basically what happens is somebody goes to Dell, they go to IBM or Lenovo, they go to Cisco, and they buy a server. They're the same servers in every cloud provider. The networking gear is running the same OSPF or intermediate systems or BGP in exactly the same protocols. Everything is the same. The only thing that's changed is the name. So it's not like you've got Mercedes brakes, which are really any different than Toyota brakes. They're just brakes. They're nearly identical. Now, the way you install them is different. You read the instruction manual for that. But they're the same brakes. There's almost nothing that's different. So the question is, it doesn't matter. So, when you go, if you were using a browser to go to the management console, it doesn't matter whether you go to the AWS page, the Azure page, it's the same. And if you're using secure shell, if you do an SSH into an IP address, it doesn't matter where the IP address is if you have routing. So the key is when you go to the store, for the people that are new, and you want to buy garlic, there might be McCormick brand, there might be Baeta brand, there might just be garlic. It's the same garlic. It doesn't matter. So that's why I'm trying to say, don't get bogged down in the name of the service. Just go buy what you need. If you buy whole wheat bread, go to the store and buy whole wheat bread. It doesn't matter who makes it. It's whole wheat bread. So these things are all the same services. The whole cloud is old. I mean, we've been working on clouds for decades now. It's not new. There's just variations of the same thing. So if you really know what is a virtual machine, a true virtual machine, it doesn't matter where the virtual machine is, whether it's on VMware ESXi in the data center or whether it's in Azure. It's the same thing. It's the identical technology. So that's really what's going on. So I really want to make sure you understood what it is. It's the same. It's the same. So if you buy tea, you want to drink tea, it doesn't matter if it's the brand of the tea. So I want you to learn what is tea, what is coffee, what is garlic. It's all the same. So it's not like aftermarket parts. It's the same part, just made by different people. I guess maybe that's what you mean by aftermarket part. It's the same thing. So granted, there may be some variations between the Thomas's English muffin and somebody else's English muffin. but they're so subtle that it's really irrelevant in 90% of the cases. Now, there are cloud providers that do things some are a little better than the others, but that's up to you as the architect to learn the limitations. But I'm going to tell you, you don't have to think very hard. So, who are the best algorithm people in the world? Just think about that for a second. Who is the number one search engine people in the world? Google. Do you know who the number two search engine people in the world are? YouTube. Do you know who owns YouTube? Google. So, if I was going to do some machine learning, algorithm work, and I wanted to use pre-built algorithms, who do I think is going to probably have the best pre-built artificial intelligence machine learning algorithms by the nature of what they do? Google. So, I'd probably use Google for my machine learning. Now, when it comes to infrastructure, Google right now doesn't have these big 128 core servers. Most people don't need 128 core servers. If I needed 128 core servers, I'd go to one of the other stores, the Azure store or the AWS store. No big deal. How are we going to connect them? With a network. How's the network connected? The same way all other networks are connected. So learn what you need and then figure out which bakery or supermarket you're going to go buy your same bread or your same tea from. It's just a store. If I need, and I'll give you two more examples. Here's an iPhone. Now my iPhone is on AT&T. My brother-in-law's is on Verizon. It's not any different for me to use my phone or his. It's just the service we're connected to. So that's realistically what we're talking about. Roger Marine, if you go through my program to be a cloud architect, should you also earn an MS in cybersecurity? Well, so Roger Marine, I think first you got to figure out what you want to do. Getting a master's degree in cybersecurity will not get you any more security jobs, but it will look good for cybersecurity, but it's not going to do much. Now, if you've got an MBA, you could do an MBA in cybersecurity, which may raise your value a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. Or Roger Marine, you could actually get a regular MBA in management, and you can raise your salary and your career potential a lot. So Roger Marine is the cloud architect. I want to try and make this. I want to make this kind of relatively clear. So if you are, please leave that. So if you are, for example, in a position where you can focus on your security, that may add a little bit. But if you focus on your business acumen, your leadership, the presentations, the program management, and all of these other critical things that you have, that could have a massive impact. So Roger Marine, if you go through my program, we'll make you a cloud architect. That'll be easy. We'll get you hired as a cloud architect. If you want to work in cybersecurity, we can help you get a cloud cybersecurity architect kind of position as well. No big deal. But if you really want to move up long-term, I suggest you make sure your MBA is in something that's non-technical, something that's leadership. Remember, we've got two levers that we can play with in your technology career. We can play with your technology, and that will get you to here. We can play on your leadership, and that will get you to here. So for long-term, we get the minimum, at least for architecture careers, we get the minimum necessary to be good as an architect. Then we focus on one of two areas. We focus on an industry, like healthcare or banking. We focus on a specialty, like security. And then we round off and give ourselves the extreme capabilities by building our business acumen, building our sales skills, building our emotional intelligence, building our leadership skills. That's how we build our career. That's how we make massive changes. We don't do it by diving deeper into the tech. If we want to dive deeper into the tech, stay in engineering. If we want to take these bigger roles, these architecture roles, they're made better by more business acumen, by more leadership skills. So Roger Marine trained the right skills. The right skills for the architect are enough tech, but more business. The right skills for the engineer are enough business, but a lot more tech. The closer you get to the money, the closer you get to the sales, the closer you get to the CEO, the closer you get to the leadership, that's where your career rises faster. That's where your salary rises faster. And that's where you can double or triple your salary. Those are the places to do it, Roger Marine, not with master's degrees in technology. They don't have any impact in your long-term career. I love education. I've done multiple master's degrees. I've never had a degree in tech in my entire life. I've got a regular MBA in management, and I've got a nurse practitioner, master's in nursing. Now, I will tell you, I was able to retire at age 34 because I was able to build such a great career by focusing on routing, specifically BGP. And then when I moved from engineering to architecture, I focused on transformation, transformation, transformation. My focus, I watched all the other architects, they focused on deeper technical skills, deeper technical skills, deeper technical skills. Their career plateaued. I focused on the leadership piece, the business piece, the sales piece, the emotional intelligence piece. And while we started at similar places, actually, they all started higher than me. My career rose and all the technical people's career froze. So make it in leadership. That'll make a much, 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 much bigger difference in your career. And you'll do very, very, very well. Nan Fan, have I ever met a customer who decided to migrate from the cloud back to on-premise? Nan Fan, there's going to be a lot of customers that are going to want to move from the cloud back to on-premises. And here's the reason. I've never had a problem like this. Why do I not have a problem like this? I'm an architect. And when I meet with my clients, I really understand their business. And I make sure my clients understand the good of the cloud, the bad of the cloud, and the ugly of the cloud. So if this is not planned intelligently, the cloud could be a disaster. The cloud could be more expensive. So you've got to understand the client first. What are the client's needs? For example, disk performance in the cloud is horrible. I mean, it's horrible. I can go to Best Buy, and for $100, I can buy an NVMe drive that gives me 500,000 IOPS and about 6,000 megabit per second throughput. I can get an IO1, a PIOPS volume with AWS that's got 64,000 IOPS, and it's the fastest volume. Well, now they made a new one which can do 250,000 IOPS. So I'd have to put 2 of those volumes in RAID 0 to equal a $100 drive that I got from Best Buy. And granted, on these servers, we can make these nice NVMe RAID arrays. So in the data center, we're going to have better disk performance. Guess what, NanFarm? It takes milliseconds to get to the cloud. We don't have those milliseconds in the cloud. So by going to the cloud, we increase latency, which for some applications is meaningless, and for other applications is a critical nightmare. So NanFam, first we have to set the expectations of what is the cloud. First, we have to determine the right applications to go to the cloud. Put the wrong ones on the cloud, and it'll be much more expensive in the cloud than the data center. So first, it's about finding the right applications. Then it's finding the applications that are going to benefit from the cloud. Then it's finding the right cloud services. Then it's finding the right environment for the services. Can we get any kind of discounts by committing, by knowing what we're going to use ahead of time? Then it's about optimizing the services for cost. All that determines whether it's going to be successful or non-successful. I will tell you, most people don't have the sophistication to actually decide to design this right. And if you design it wrong, and I'm not referring to you when I say you, but I'm referring to people in general when I say you, when the wrong design, it will be a nightmare. It will cost the customer far more than the data center. The performance could be far worse than the data center, but it could also be better. And that's up to the design. So if I had a customer that decided to go back to on-premise from the cloud, they might have a good reason. I would look at the design. If the design on the cloud was wrong, I would offer to fix the design for the customer and see if they're interested. I would show them where the flaws were in the design without making anybody look bad, because you got to give the person that designed it wrong the opportunity to save face. So lots of times, most of what I've seen when these things don't work right is the person didn't understand the cloud. What they really didn't understand was the systems in the network and the data center. And if you don't understand the systems in the network and the data center, and you just select cloud services, they're not going to work. And it's not going to work right, and it's going to be a disaster. So usually these are the things. So yes, if there's a customer that wants to go back to the data center and there's a good reason, I'd happily take them back to the data center. There's a good reason for on-premise stuff. Lots of stuff I would always keep on-prem. Other things I would keep on the cloud. So realistically speaking, the hybrid cloud, where a customer has a Nutanix or an OpenStack cloud in their data center, and then they connect to a public cloud, I think is the best and most elegant solution for the majority of people for good reason. So yes, you will run into customers that were there, customers that thought the cloud was going to be cheaper. Somebody just assumed that Shifting from CapEx to OpEx would be a good thing without actually understanding the implications of the business. Systems on the cloud, if they're used too much, get too expensive. So we don't exactly know what's going on. You have to evaluate it with the customer. But again, when we're dealing with this, it goes back to the same things. What is the business problem that is trying to be solved with tech? And was the right tech applied to solve the right business problem? These are this, and that's how you handle it. It goes back to everything else. Start with the customer. What problem are they trying to solve? If they're on the cloud, then optimize the cloud. And if you look at it and you see that the cloud design was wrong, tell the customer that the cloud design was wrong. Do it in a way and show them how to fix it and demo it and make it work. And then keep them on the cloud. But you know what, Sven, sometimes it's in the best interest to go back to the cloud. Maybe it's a disk intensive thing that should be back in the data center. Maybe they decided to move a machine learning thing to the cloud where they were running their own custom libraries that they designed themselves and they weren't leveraging anybody else's. And maybe the systems that they had with a bunch of Quadro cards in their data center that were prepaid for were far cheaper than using SageMaker and AWS. And if that's the case, it's cheaper to go back there. So it's not what's right or what's wrong. It's what's right for that customer. That's why the architect is not an engineer. The engineer is this really smart technical expert that builds it. The architect is the designer, and they're designing based upon the business. So you've got to understand the business. If somebody starts with the tech and not the business, the solution will always be wrong, which is why I'm always like, if you want to be an architect, more on business, less on tech. That's how I would handle it. So I have time for one more question. I can take one more, and then we've got to get ourselves prepared for the what do you call it? We'll give ourselves time to get prepared for the AWS Advanced Networking. Looks like we had one more question there from Roger Marine.
Not really a question, but okay.
I think a cloud architect would be better for me. I know I will do well because you have 15 years tech support experience, and my customers treated me because they knew you had your best interest. So first, far more pay in the architecture roles than the engineering. The customers know that you're in there. Far, far, far more potential as an architect. But there are people, Roger Marine, that don't like to be hands-on tech. And for those people, that don't like to be customer facing. And for those people, engineering is great. But, if you've got years in tech support, you have a lot more opportunities in architecture. So I think that sounds great. Wayne Lowe, how is the supply and demand with architects and engineers, and why are architects paid more than engineers? Wayne, the supply and demand for these positions is ridiculous right now. So ridiculous. There's hundreds of thousands of jobs and no one can fill them. So the supply of certified people is there. The supply of qualified people is not there. So Wayne Lowe, prior to making this program, now I've been getting people hired for 20 years. I interviewed 1,000 AWS people. Not a single one was hireable. There's not a day that goes by where I don't get multiple job offers, and there's not a day that goes by that every person that I know that's capable. So the question is, why are architects paid more than engineers? I want you to understand the difference. The engineer is a system builder. They are the smartest person on the team in terms of the tech. The reason engineers will always cap out is engineering could be done anywhere. I don't need an engineer in the US. I can hire an engineer in Cameroon. I can hire an engineer in Cambodia, and I can hire a cloud engineer to go build my things in Laos. I don't care. It doesn't matter which country they're in. It doesn't matter. All the cloud engineer is going to build, and they can build in any country in the world. And conceivably, at some point in the future, I can buy myself some really great cloud engineers for low cost because it's all remote access. So that's one reason which will always keep the supply, the salary of your programmers and your engineers and your builders lower, is that other people can do it in other countries that are much cheaper. But that's not the main reason. I want you to truly understand the reason. I have myself a really good engineer, Wayne. I pay him $175,000 a year. They're well paid for their job. Now, I want you to go back and think about the architect role, because it's not an engineering role. The architect is the transformer. So no matter how good that engineer is, They don't start with the customer. The engineer goes, builds what you tell them to build, and that person is highly educated and capable. So the value of what the engineer does for the company, Wayne, is the worker bee. Now, the architect, by comparison, does something very different, Wayne. The architect goes to the customer. The architect who's at the customer asks the customer about their business. Now, Wayne Lowe, the architect who just asked the customer about their business, will quantify a business problem. So, Wayne Lowe, the architect that goes meets with this customer who doesn't know the tech anywhere near as well as the cloud engineer, goes and identifies a $800 million problem at the customer. And then the architect designs a $400 million solution that solves the customer's $800 million problem. And not only solves that customer's $400 million problem, it also increases the customer's revenue by another $300 million that year, which means the architect with their business acumen has created $500 million of business value for the customer. Now, because the architect is generating $500 million of business value for the customer, that architect can easily sell that $200 million solution. Now, that architect brings back the $200 million solution back to the company. And guess what? The company now has a $200 billion or $200 million project to work on. So now that architect just brought in $200 million of revenue. So now if they paid that architect $5 million, the company would still benefit $195 million. So it's the architect that's bringing the money in. And because they're bringing the money in, that's what makes the architect so valuable. The architect is valuable to the customer because the architect to the customer saved that customer $300 million more than what the actual tech actually cost the customer. The architect gets paid so much more for the customer because they bring the business in. So without the architect, there is no business. So without the engineer, nothing gets done. So because the architect brings the business in, they get paid a lot more. That's why the sales reps at these big technology companies earn several $100,000 a year more than the sales engineers that are actually the people that are designing it. It's because the closer you get to the business, the more money you bring into the company, that's determines your salary. It's the value you provide to the organization. And the architect is very closely tied to revenue, where the engineer is an expense. It costs money. So who do you lay off when times get tough? The person that brings in the money or the person that costs you money? So engineers will always be an expense, and architects will always be a source of money coming into the company. Be the source of money, get paid more. So that is why architects get paid more. That is why architects have much more career progression. And that is the reason, specifically to the financial impact to their employer. The value you deliver to your employer in terms of the money they make off of you can determine exactly how much they're willing to pay you. So that's the reason why. So at this point, we have to end for the day. It's been so Roger Marine asked one question: can an architect earn over $500,000 a year if they are really good at the business side? So I will tell you, as an experienced architect, getting a $300,000 to $400,000 a year job offer comes pretty much every day without looking for it. Going above that, sure, if you're an MBA with extremely good business acumen, extremely good emotional intelligence, extremely good sales skills, and now we're talking into some of these better enterprise architect roles that are also leadership roles. So the answer is you can. It's not normal, it's not average, but there is the opportunity to earn an incredible amount of money, especially for the people that want to do their own $400 and $600 an hour cloud architect consulting, for which you could book yourself 30, 40 hours a week, no problem, easily. So the key is, can you? The answer is yes, but your salary is going to be limited by how good of a business person you are, how much of an entrepreneur you are, and how you want to build your brand. So the key is depends upon your brand. So that's why I keep saying, let's get out of the pure tech. Let's get into the brand building business. Let's get into the transformation business. Let's get into the solve business problems with technology. That is how you do these things. That is how you become wildly, wildly, wildly successful. It's all about Solve your customers' problems. Transform your customer's business in a way that no one else in the entire world can do it. That's how you become an asset. That's how the world comes to you. That's how there won't be a day that passes in your life without getting a job opportunity, when you solve problems. So, Roger Marine, you can do extremely well. Now, 300-400 a year, no big deal, super easy. Above that, entrepreneurial spirit, lots of business acumen, lots of emotional intelligence, lots of sales skills, and a little bit of entrepreneurship, but it can definitely be done. So thank you all so much. In 15 minutes, we have our AWS Advanced Networking course for the day, and it's going to be lots of fun because we're talking about networking. And what's more fun than networking? Besides, networking is what makes the cloud possible. So thank you all so much, and I look forward to seeing you, hopefully most of you, in about 45 minutes or so. Take care, everybody.